listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM with Skafy and Elliot and producer Shell. If you're listening today live, it's the 20th of May. It's a Wednesday in 2026. And we're going to be talking about how to fight. We spoke about how to fight against greed in our previous segment. We are going to be looking at a story of when an off-cop Judy saves an on-duty cop in the United States. We're going to be looking at how to shop for a wife if you are in China. And also our interview is going to be with Jennifer. She has an incredible, beautiful interview about her cancer journey that she will be sharing with us. Jennifer Skews, she is our one of our resident psychologists here on Faith FM.
Yeah, wow.
And she hasn't been a while with us for a while because she was in that cancer journey that she's going to be sharing with us. We're also going to be looking into the question, is faith a feeling?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what the Bible has to say about that one. That's going to be Elliot's Bible study. He will convince us that it is or that it isn't. We'll see.
Yeah.
His line of reasoning. But before we get into the cop story, I would like to ask producer Shell if she has a quiz story for us. Yes, please, producer Shell.
Okay. Paul says we should give tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor, while referencing what authority? This comes from Romans chapter 13.
Ooh.
Who was he saying that we should give these things to? I'll take it. Yes.
Okay.
Well done. We got correct answers in the studio. 0491-064-669 is our text line. Paul says we should give tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor, while referencing what authority in Romans chapter 13.
Yeah, nice.
Interesting.
This is a good passage, interesting one. One that not a lot of people like, but one that we should obey nonetheless.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, now, my friend Elliot, tell me a little bit about your cop friend. What did he do?
I've got an interesting story that I came across, which when I looked at it, I thought, wow, this is a really cool story that I definitely think involves God. So let's talk about it. So what happened is there's this British cop. His name is Taylor Johansson, okay, from the town of Ashford in the county of Kent in the UK. So this guy, he's from the UK and he's on a holiday with his wife. He's decided to come over to America, to Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh,
Down in the south of America, Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, the land of the rolling hills of Tennessee. Was he there for some kind of country music festival or something?
I actually don't know. The article didn't say as to why he was visiting Nashville, but it is funny that you mentioned that. Nashville is one of the most famous, cities as far as music is concerned, especially country music. It's like the biggest country
also,
music
Graceland
place.
is right around there, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Isn't like Elvis Presley from that area or his house or something?
Yeah, Graceland.
Graceland?
Yeah,
right.
okay. There you go. So it's quite a famous place. And I think that must partially have been a reason why Taylor and his wife were going to visit Nashville.
Maybe he went there to be one of the Elvis impersonators.
Who
He
knows?
went for a competition.
Maybe.
He could have gone to Dollywood.
Dollywood.
Well, for Dolly Parton or something.
Yeah, Dollywood is a theme park.
Oh, there
her
you
theme
go.
Oh,
park.
really?
That's crazy. I didn't even know that. There you go. So, so this cop, this British cop, Taylor Johansson, is visiting America. He's visiting Nashville. And what happens? It's May 7th, 8 p.m. at night. And this guy, Taylor, has just gotten off the plane with his wife. He's just gotten into his hired Jeep Cherokee, I think, or Jeep Wrangler, sorry. And he's driving down the freeway. He's taking the I-440 exit ramp. I don't know what that is because I'm not an American. But he's taken this exit ramp and he's seen a stopped police car. So he's like, oh, what's going on here? And this is really interesting. I got a quote from him. He said, "We'd been out of the airport for about 10 minutes. As I was driving on the exit ramp, I saw the police car parked up and could see two people fighting on the floor. And then he says, I stopped my car to see what was going on. The suspect was on top of the officer and he was headbutting him, punching him, and biting him.
Oh,
and I was
no,
like,
that's
what
horrible.
is going on here? And what had been going on is that there is a on-duty police officer in the city of Nashville. His name is Officer Peter Kinsey. It's an African-American officer who's living in Nashville, right? He's on duty. And what had happened is he'd noticed that on this exit, there was some pedestrian that was just walking along the exit. And so he's like, well, this is really strange. So he pulls over and checks to see if this pedestrian is okay. He's asking him. He's like, well, hang on. Just stop. I just want to check that you're okay. He parks his car, gets out and sees, is everything all right with this guy? And then this pedestrian all of a sudden turns around and starts attacking this cop, Officer Kinsey. He starts attacking him. And the thing that's crazy is that this fight had been going on for about 6 minutes before the UK police officer, Taylor Johansson, before he'd seen what's going on. The fight had been going on for about 6 minutes. And it actually got to the stage where this suspect, who was a 43-year-old pedestrian, is wrestling with Officer Kinsey and manages to actually fire his gun whilst it's in the holster. So thankfully he wasn't able to grab Officer Kinsey's gun out of the holster and shoot Officer Kinsey.
But did the bullet hit anywhere?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Wow.
I don't think so. But he'd managed to fire his gun off in the holster. So it's serious. And the article says that, well, Kinsey basically said, like, I was concerned that I was going to die. Like,
there's a few things. I'm wondering if this is standard for American cops to carry a loaded and ready to go gun. Like,
well,
don't you
normally
you have to load it? There's the safety, but normally you had to lock it, to pull the top part of the gun and to lodge the bullet in the right place precisely to avoid these kinds of accidents.
Yeah. So
the second thing is, like, is it common for U.S. cops to do patrols like by themselves? Because this is a dangerous thing.
Yeah, I'm actually not.
You can be overpowered by a strong civilian.
Yeah, it's true. It is true, and that's, I think, part of the reason why the cops carry guns is so that in the case that is what's happening and you are by yourself on patrol.
I don't know, because you're not allowed to use guns if the criminal is not either using a gun himself or at least having some kind of lethal weapon. I don't think you can use a gun against someone that does not have a gun. I think it's against the law.
Is it?
Yeah.
You have to have this no higher level of force than what is being used against you.
There you go. Okay, so
normally they use like tasers.
But if there are several people against one person, then a gun would be a equal or lesser force to that many people attacking
that's right.
you. So it very much depends on the situation.
But if it's 1 versus 1,
there you go.
But man, what a situation! And imagine like 6 minutes of a brawl where people are being headbutted and bitten.
Yeah.
This is like an eternity.
And this is
like worse than UFC.
Yeah, it's a long time, actually. 6 minutes of fighting is a very surprisingly long time. I used to do some wrestling with my housemate back in Canberra. His name was Joe, because he was right into wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'll wrestle him, I want to try and learn this. Dude, it is tiring.
Yeah, it is
like
tiring.
1 minute feels like an eternity. So 6 minutes is a long time.
And that's when people are not headbutting you in the face.
Exactly. Anyway, so what happens is this UK police officer, Taylor Johansson, sees what's going on, pulls over, gets out and tackles this 43-year-old pedestrian off Officer Kinsey.
Bless him, man.
Yeah. And then, because now Officer Kinsey's free, he's able to tase the guy and handcuff him. Okay.
Wow.
And what was amazing about this, and this is a really cool quote from Taylor Johansson, he said, it says here that Taylor Johansson said that they pulled over for a few minutes shortly before the incident to put some music on, and if this hadn't happened, he wouldn't have seen the struggle. And then there's a quote here. He says, it's a bit like divine intervention. He was definitely the right place at the right time, and I'm glad it was me. Everyone else was just driving past. And like, how fortunate that a police officer is the one to see what's going on, where a police officer is being struggling with a pedestrian.
Was at the right place on the right time, with the right skill, the right training.
Yeah, exactly.
And the right level of bravery, because he could just like, look, I'm with my wife, I'm enjoying my holidays, let this cop do this thing. But actually he carried. And I think because his brain was just like intent in
he said like
others.
all the training, and he saw what was going on. It just kind of like switched into autopilot, and it was like fight or flight. Boom. He just went straight in there because that's what he'd been trained to do. And the thing that's really interesting is that after this, he went back to the police station to basically be said, like, to thank him.
Yeah.
And so, like, to give a statement and everything that's going on. And the whole police force, they were so grateful for this guy, Taylor Johansson, that they gave him a bunch of gifts. One of which is challenge coins. I don't know exactly what challenge coins are. I'd have to look into that. But they gave him a police blanket. And this one's actually really cool. He is being sent an engraved watch, which I think is pretty epic. And
wow, man, these US people, they know how to give
normally
gifts.
Engraved watches they usually go to officers who have served for 30 years.
Wow.
Or more. But as a special thank you, he's getting one for saving this officer's life. So
wow, that's very special.
It's a pretty cool story, and pretty cool to see how, I really think that God must have had a part to play in orchestrating the timing so that it lined up that he'd be able to save this officer's life. I think it's a really cool thing, and crazy that he'd only been in America for like 10 minutes at this point. It's like the first experience of being in America is, this cop is being harassed.
Probably thinking America is just like the movies and more.
So there you go. Pretty incredible story, I reckon.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
We're going to talk now about how to find a wife in the Chinese marriage market today. But before we get into that, we have to get another market, the market for correct quiz answers. Let's purchase one from producer Shell.
Correct quiz answer. First, I wanted to say that the medallion thingy, the challenge coin.
Yeah.
The challenge coin is an actual coin size thing, but it's got like the company or the membership or the achievement. So you get one of those coins, like if you've done AA for a year or things like that.
Right.
And so lots of places like police stations and things like that, they have their own little coins that they give to people when they've done something
That's
great.
cool. That is
It's
cool,
like,
actually.
just means
That's
that
so nice.
you've achieved something.
Cool little memento.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okie dokie. And our quiz answer as well was, Paul says he should give tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to honor, in reference to governing authorities or civil rulers.
There you
according
go.
to Romans 13.
Governing authorities or civil rulers.
Okay.
I said government because that's,
I said the king, but I think it's included into that.
Yeah.
Actually, a funny story about that. I remember one time back when I was in high school and I was learning piano still. I was a bit afraid of my piano teacher because I hadn't been doing much practice and I was worried I was going to get in there and he was going to be a bit grumpy, like,
Beat
come
you
on,
with the
Elliot.
rod,
Maybe not that far.
throw the piano at you.
But I just remember being like, man, I don't like this. But then the start of that verse is like, do you fear authority? Do what is right and you don't need to be afraid, basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I guess I should do my practice then because otherwise if I don't want to be afraid of my piano teacher, then I might as well do the practice and then I don't have to be afraid. And that's what I did. And I didn't have to be afraid.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome verse.
It's good. It instills the fear of God in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
I can concur with that. Like some of the best, music teachers, sometimes they can be quite demanding.
Sometimes, but oftentimes,
But you need a little bit of that.
Yeah, it helps.
Not
you
only the
put in
carrot, but
work.
also the stick.
Yeah.
Both of them play an important role
That's true.
in learning an instrument. All right. Look, I was listening this morning to a podcast as I was driving to work, and
okay.
it was a podcast from the Australian, and it was an interview between Claire Harvey and Yoni Bashan. So he's the Australian correspondent in China.
Right.
And they were talking about how to find a wife in the Chinese market. So it turns out that in China there's a thing which is a market where you can go there to find a wife or a husband.
Right.
So this one was in Shanghai. Shanghai is one of the most the most famous ones. So, and it's not like in a creepy hidden place. This is actually in the most lush, beautiful, one of the most important parks in Shanghai. And you enter through the park's gates, and right in front of you, there we go. There's like a little tunnel-like structure, and hanging from both sides of the tunnel, there are these laminated pieces of paper. Most of them handwritten. Some of them are white. Some of them are red, and they all have a description of a person who wants to get married.
Wow. Okay.
So for example, they say, look, 28-year-old female, multiple college diplomas, working at a, high earning job at like a consulting firm.
Yeah.
Looking for marriage, for example.
Wow. So it's kind of like a form of Tinder, I guess, in some sort of sense, but it's
Some
not
sort
for
of
dating,
sense.
it's for marriage.
But then there's some things about it. Number one, there's no pictures attached. There's only like the CV, only the credentials.
Right. Only the reputation.
On reputation, the credentials usually talks about like, what assets do they have?
Okay.
What is their education level? This is so the first thing that struck me was that there's no photos. Like, would you, agree to marry someone before even seeing them?
Yeah.
It seems there's like the whole chemistry thing going on.
That is very interesting. That is very interesting.
The second thing that caught my attention is that the people being advertised, they don't even know that they're being advertised.
Really? Mm-hmm. How does that work?
Their parents are advertising them on their behalf. And
There you go.
some of these young adults, so it's normally people between the ages of 28 and 40 years old,
Yeah.
mid-20s to 40s, they're called the leftover ladies,
Ooh.
people that didn't get married until this point. And there's a reason why they didn't get married, because they have been, oftentimes they moved from the country into the cities, and for you to get your share of pie in the big cities in China, you need to study a lot, and then you're working a lot. Like China has one of the longest hours workaholic culture in the world.
Really?
Yes, people would easily work between 12 to 15 hours a day. That's the absolute
man.
standard.
Wow.
If you're working 12 hours, let's say from 7 to 7, you're lucky. Like this is
crazy.
not it's not a lot. So they have like some really insane work ethics in that country, and because of that, look, they build amazing careers. They develop incredible professional skills, but then their social environment is really reduced to a very minimum. Their social circles, it's how do you even meet people? Particularly if like you're working with your work colleagues all day long and they're all married, how do you get in?
Yeah.
The other interesting thing that caught the reporter's attention in that market is that even though there is a shortage of women in China, the majority of people being advertised to get married were women. You'd kind of think that it would be the other way around.
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you?
And there's some reasons for that. So look, let me just say this. Not all parents are advertising their kids against their consent.
Okay.
Some kids said, okay, dad, mom, you do what you want to do. That's
Yeah.
fine. They agree with it. But the reason why there's more women in that market than men is because in China there is a big culture of hypergamy, meaning girls, they want to marry someone that is better off to them financially and socially.
Okay. So they want to marry up.
Yeah, so
basically.
there's a lot of guys, for example, there's a lot of men in China, and the reason that there's more young men in China than ladies, it was because of their one-child policy, which was in full force until like the mid-2010s,
Yeah.
when they moved on to a two-child policy. But because of that, a lot of families, they at the time they chose to have boys instead of girls. And even sometimes they would, do some horrible things to baby girls that were born, some families, because they actually since that they could only have a son, they wanted one child. They want to have a son because a son at the time, while the son can work, then get a career, then can look after us in our old age.
Yeah, they can keep the family
They
lineage.
can keep the family lineage. There's like a cultural thing as well that usually you lost the daughter. She used to go to live with the parents of the husband and then care for them. So you ended up going pretty much neglected, and she would be living many times in a different city to the parents. So boys were favored, but then all of these boys, a lot of them, that when they're trying to move from the country into the city, trying to get a job, many of them do get education and get a good job, but some of them, they don't. And they're in the gig economy, or they are working construction and there's lower paying jobs. And the girls, the ladies, they don't want to marry these guys.
Interesting.
They don't want to marry someone that earns less than them. So at the very minimum, for you to get married in China today, as a young man, you have to already own your house and your car, and have a pretty well-paying salary. And of course, there will be exceptions to that, but we're talking about this is the trend.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
We actually, just quickly, we got a message from Johanna Gaddy. She said, I've been to that park with some friends just to see what it was like, not for matchmaking. Unfortunately, we went on a weekday, so it wasn't that busy. But yes, there were mostly parents and grandparents there, and you could see they were eyeing up people to see who they could set up with their children.
That's right.
That's fascinating.
And that movement started in 2004 in Beijing. And these elderly people, they went for their jogs, for their exercises. And as they were talking to other elderly people, they all had the same worry that their grandkids or their children, especially those who had girls, they were not married.
Yeah.
So we have to do something about it. And that's why they started to meet up, coming up with a little plaque with little signs saying, hey, this is who my granddaughter is. Like they usually will wear nice clothes to kind of indicate like they're coming from good family, good values and so on. And then they will try to find other people to matchmake.
Super interesting.
And there's a story of this one girl, like she's absolutely brilliant. She's she's gorgeous. She has this career in aviation. She works for like an aviation state company. She had a really good job. She had like some amazing degrees, and her father goes there every weekend, and he has been doing so for 3 years and still hasn't found a suitable match.
Wow.
And then they report asking like, why do you think is that? He says, look, your daughter has an incredible curriculum. And he says, yes, but look at the other curriculums. There's even better curriculums here than hers. So it's a very fierce competition.
Wow.
Yeah. And finally, there's another moment as well where the reporter was talking to one of the ladies that is a professional matchmaker. And he's asking like, is this thing working for young people, young adults? And she said, yeah, it is working. But you know what? Most of the times the problems are the parents themselves. Because they have such high expectations and they're so invasive that they are often the cause of divorce between young adults. So that's this crazy paradox where parents are the ones desperate to marry their kids, but because they want to keep and retain full control, they are the ones ended up being the stumbling block for their children not getting married.
Interesting. I guess it's important why the Bible says like you should leave mother and father and become one.
Leave them.
Become your own family.
There you go. Look, I'll just note this one thing. The Bible says a good husband, a good wife, they are a gift from the Lord. So if you're looking in the market, looking for a husband or a wife, well, the best thing you can do is start praying.
Absolutely.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And we have a very special guest today, our very beloved Jennifer Skuse, our health psychologist, who is our honorary health psychologist here for the Breakfast Show. She's been with us for many, many years, every Wednesday, talking about mental health. Today she's going to be sharing with us a little bit about her own health journey. She's been helping a lot of people, hundreds, if not thousands of people with their mental health. But she came to a place where her own mental health was tested because she had a very serious cancer journey, and she's going to be sharing all of that with us and how God helped her through that. Jennifer, it is my absolute pleasure to have you again. We just lost her, but producer Shell is going to be calling her back. So Jennifer Skuse, by the way, all of her interviews on mental health are available in the Faith FM website. If you go to faithfm.com.au and you look for Jennifer Skuse, you see all of our history of episodes with her, and she's quite an amazing lady.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I met her in person as well. So not only spoken, she has such great insights on mental health.
I've got a lot of time for psychologists because I think, brains are incredibly complex things, so to be able to try and understand them and help people that are struggling with mental health and all that kind of stuff is a very difficult task, I reckon. So,
and a lot of people were asking, where is she? Where's Jennifer? Because a lot of people were really, benefiting and enjoying from her counsel. We were trying to attempt a connection with Jennifer here, but with no success. We're going to try to see if we can get her again. Producer Shao is trying to call her. Let's see if we are going to get hold of her.
Hi, this is Jennifer.
Yeah, it looks like we are having a little bit of a difficult time here to connecting with Jennifer. Well, let's move on the topic now, and until we can get Jennifer to connect with us. Oh, looks like Jennifer is with us. So, Jennifer, good morning to you. I thought for 1 second that you didn't want to talk to me anymore.
No, I can talk now, but I do want to talk to you.
It's great to have you. It's great to have you here.
Yes, it's good to be back.
And Jennifer, look, a lot of people were quite worried when we announced that you were going to step out from the radio duties for a while because you're looking after your health. And a lot of people were asking what's happening. And it looks like now that you have some testimonies to share. So can you tell us from the beginning, what made you step out of your Wednesday program here with us, your interview?
Yes. Well, at the beginning of last year, I ended up being diagnosed with a throat cancer. And I'd had it before, but what it did, it caused an enlargement of the back of the tongue that caused a speech problem initially. Mm-hmm. And I got to a point where I couldn't actually speak because you couldn't understand me. And if those who are listening would remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But this came after an initial battle with a tongue cancer that you had even prior to that, wasn't it?
Yes. I had this cancer in 2018, but it can recur under certain stress conditions, and I know what caused it. And I've been very blessed to have the right treatment plan and learnt so much about cancers, inflammation, and how to treat them.
So let's
talk about help others.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that because that's a fascinating thing. So you had this first cancer, which you've done a surgery, which is I would imagine would be a very complicated surgery. It's a very sensitive part of the body.
Oh, it is.
And that led to some complications in your mastication, didn't it?
Well, it did, but nothing too serious. I had a recovery time. I had 2 major ops within 2 weeks of that first surgery, and that's where I didn't have pain. I recovered very quickly because I am healthy. I've got a good immune system, and God is good. God did so much healing and protected me. So I give him the glory for all my recoveries. Yeah. But earlier this year, they couldn't operate, or earlier last year, I had to find a different treatment pathway.
And you mentioned that you discovered what could be the probable cause of this return of the cancer. Can you share with us what did you find out it was?
Well, the year before, in 2024, I had 2 teeth at the back of my mouth that became very toxic. And it took quite a while to get the surgeon to be able to remove them. And that toxicity, plus it was a very stressful year, caused enough inflammation for a small piece of the cancer cell that probably remained to be triggered.
Wow. So there was these 2 teeth that have been lingering there for a while, plus stress. And that created an environment that allowed the cancer to grow back
toxic.
Again.
Yes, and it was highly inflamed, and that was the trigger. Inflammation is the problem in all our diseases and disorders. So I've been given I guess you could say, a course on treating inflammation that I can now help others with.
So tell us a little bit about that, because you said that at this point in time, another surgery wouldn't be an option, I would imagine, because it would be too aggressive. So
Yes,
what options did you have?
Well, I went straight into what the Bible teaches us about the Daniel diet and really looking after your health. And so I did a lot of anti-inflammatory foods and options and liquids. And I know that really helped. And I also found some very good transdermal liquids, magnesium and another one that reduces inflammation. And I use that on all that area and in my mouth. Then I heard about immunotherapy, which I'd never heard of. And that actually helps the immune system to find the cancer and attack it. Because cancers, they hide, they camouflage. So what happened was they were able to detect it. Now my immune system was very, very good, apparently. It was very active in that area. It couldn't find the cancer cells. So once I did the immunotherapy, it set my killer T cells up to identify and kill a cancer. And that happened very rapidly. So within a few months, the cancer, by middle of the year, the cancer was gone. They couldn't find it. They never say it's cured, but yeah, there were no cells evident, and there still aren't.
Wow, this is actually quite amazing. So it was a combination of factors here. There's a lifestyle, there's some natural supplements that I'm understanding here, and these like groundbreaking technology in cancer treatment, which is immunotherapy, which acts in boosting your immune system around the areas where it's most needed.
Oh, absolutely. And it would have detected any cancer cells anywhere in the body. The immune system is now set up to recognize them.
Wow. And look, Jennifer, I'd imagine that the whole process, the whole ordeal would have been very stressed. What tools did you ended up making use of? How did you help your own body to relax and to distress? Because this is something that now you had to put in practice, right? What tools did you find work best for you?
Okay. Well, first and foremost is my prayer life and God. Because when you go through things like that, and I'm sure the listeners can relate to this, you turn to the Lord more fully. So I really did a lot of prayer and meditation on the Word, and God just directed me with Bible verses and readings. But then I also used things like reducing my stress by the proper breathing. By working on, I've got some very good breathing processes. We have talked about that before, and there are others that you can do that de-stress. So I had to be very aware of the signals in my body where I was getting stressed, and even now I do that, and then make sure I do something about it. Yeah.
But what did you do? I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know that I've experienced this in my own life and definitely with some people that I've counseled through the years and provided pastoral care that were going through very challenging, serious, life-threatening even, like yours, cancers. And one of the things that I've often noticed that people often report, look, I know that prayer and reading the Bible would do me really good, but I just don't have the strength, I don't have the energy to do so. And even if I do, I do feel better for a time, but then a few moments later, all of those negative thoughts are popping back again. Have you experienced that? And what do you do in those situations?
It is a battle of the mind, and this is where the Bible instructs us to give all our thoughts to the Lord. So when I start having those negative thoughts, I either feed them or starve them. Now, it's a new skill because you're used to feeding them, so you have to really work at going, no, what better thoughts can I have? And this is where I find, again, through prayer or talking to the Lord or praying for help, works. But you've got to change the brain. You've got to rewire the brain out of that type of negative thinking.
So can you give us one example of a negative thought that was populating your mind and for what you replaced it with? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I first got this diagnosis again, it's like, what have I done wrong? There must be something wrong with me to get the cancer again. It didn't last long because then I found I had answers to that, and I realised that I then explored and prayed, I need to know why I've got this cancer again. But there was a reason why, and now I'm very positive. It was only within that week I started to question myself and blame me, which is very negative, because it was more about, well, what did I do and what can I learn versus I'm the problem. I had to keep shifting that thinking.
Oh, that is fascinating. That is very interesting. So you're reframing the otherwise negative, like self-blaming pattern to, okay, what can I actually learn from that so I can grow and I can, okay. And Jennifer.
It's worse. Go on. It's worse in the morning when you wake up. It's those early hours that the brain runs loose and has that negative thinking. So you have to really stop and regroup very quickly in the morning, or you'll find you start feeling depressed and anxious, and, it's a battle.
And were you afraid of dying at any point? And was that something, a thought or a fear that crossed you? And if yes, how did you manage it?
Well, both times that I had the cancer, I questioned. I thought, well, maybe it's my time. And very rapidly, I was told, no, it's not your time. And I took that in faith, that I wasn't going to die, that some good would come out of this. And a lot of good for me has come out of it, but a lot of good for the work I do has come out of it.
And can you tell us a little bit more about how is God able to bring good things out of this otherwise all negative situation?
Well, because I had to keep learning what to do, I found because I was able to continue working with clients. I had lots of energy. I slept well. I had good appetite. Nothing changed except I had this cancer. I had no pain. But I found when working with people, I was picking up on things that they were doing that was causing the mental health problem or their disorder. And what I'd learned, I can teach them. And that was such a blessing, because I'm more effective now in helping people to recover from their illnesses as well as their mental health problems.
Wow. And Jennifer, so you learned new ways to help people, and you were able to pick up on things, on behaviors, on thought patterns that were making them sick. Can you share with us perhaps one of the most common patterns that you observe in clients when you're talking to them that is called making them sick, even though they might not be aware?
Yes, I think as far as psychology goes, what you brought up was the negative thinking, and I find a lot of people, and I know I used to do more of this, that will focus on the problem, not the solution, right? So they become a problem generator. And I had someone recently presented, she was doing well, presented highly anxious because she got caught up in her negative thinking and fear projection. So it's getting people to live in the present, bring their thinking back to the present, and looking what's the solution instead of the problem.
Wow.
So I think that's the biggest thing.
That's amazing. Well, that is definitely great, great something to really contemplate and to think about it. Jennifer, look, our time is running out, and we'd love to have you with us again. Particularly now that you regain your ability to speak. But before we go, do you have in maybe 30 seconds, perhaps a word that you'd like to give to someone who might perhaps be in a situation where they are quite frightened regarding their future?
I think speaking, if they can't resolve it themselves, certainly through prayer and the Lord leads, but I find maybe getting a counsellor, preferably, a Christian counsellor, even someone from the pastor or someone they can talk to, and to have a look and get some help to resolve that fear.
Amazing. Seeking for help, and the Bible says that in the multitude of counselors there is wisdom. Yes. Jennifer, thank you so much. We are so glad to hear that you are well, that God has healed you, that this cancer has been in remission, and that throughout of that you learned so many amazing ways to bless other people. We're looking forward to catch up with you another time.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.